My boss had been stealing my ideas for years, but I never imagined he'd steal my entire identity. That Tuesday morning, when I opened my email to find a LinkedIn notification congratulating me on my new patent filing, I knew Marcus Chen had crossed a line he couldn't uncross. I'd been working at Nexus Technologies for 5 years. Marcus was my department head. Slick, charismatic, the kind of guy who could sell ice to penguins. He had this habit of scheduling brainstorming sessions where I'd present my ideas, and somehow they'd always end up in his quarterly reports with his name attached. But this was different. This was my quantum encryption algorithm. 2 years of nights and weekends poured into code that could revolutionize cybersecurity. I'd been careful, working on it only on my personal laptop, never mentioning it at work. "Hey, great work on that patent filing," my co-worker Janet said, popping her head into my cubicle. "Marcus showed it in the all-hands meeting. Said you two had been collaborating." My stomach dropped. "What patent filing?" Janet's face shifted. "The quantum encryption one. Q-Safe, I think he called it." That was my name, my code, my everything. I pulled up the patent database with shaking hands. There it was. Q-Safe Quantum Encryption Protocol. Inventors listed as Marcus Chen and me. Except the me listed wasn't actually me. The social security number was off by 1 digit. The middle initial was wrong. Marcus had created a shadow version of me, just close enough to pass casual inspection, but different enough to root all the legal rights to himself. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something cold and calculated replace my initial rage. Marcus thought he was clever. He thought he'd found the perfect crime. Steal my work and make it look like I'd agreed to it. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I spent the next 3 days documenting everything, every email where I'd mentioned working on personal projects, every timestamp from my home computer, every Git commit in my private repository dated months before Marcus's filing. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Corporate theft is hard to prove, especially when your boss has already poisoned the well. So I decided to give Marcus exactly what he wanted, and then some. I started by being the perfect employee, enthusiastic, supportive. I even congratulated him publicly on our patent. "Marcus is such a visionary," I told anyone who'd listen. "I'm learning so much from our collaboration." Marcus ate it up. His ego had always been his weakness, and now I was feeding it a 5-course meal. "You know," I told him one afternoon, "I've been working on something new, something that makes Q-Safe look like a bicycle lock." His eyes lit up. "Oh, really? Tell me more." "It's called Quantum Shield," I said. "It's a defense protocol that could protect against quantum computer attacks. But I'm stuck on the implementation." That was a lie. I wasn't stuck. In fact, I'd intentionally built a fatal flaw into the algorithm, a backdoor so subtle that it would pass initial reviews, but catastrophic enough to destroy any system it was installed on. It was elegant in its destruction, like a digital time bomb wrapped in Christmas paper. "Let's schedule another brainstorming session," Marcus suggested, already salivating. Over the next few weeks, I fed him pieces of Quantum Shield, just enough to keep him hooked. I watched him take notes, saw him staying late to refine my work. He even started hinting about another patent filing. But here's where Marcus made his fatal error. He was so eager to steal my new invention that he forgot to actually understand the old one. See, when I'd originally developed Q-Safe, I'd built in a feature I called author authentication. It was buried deep in the code, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Every time QSafe encrypted something, it would embed a hidden signature, my signature, in the quantum noise, undetectable by conventional means, but irrefutable proof of authorship to anyone who knew the key. And I'd been very careful to document that key in my original notes, the ones with timestamps predating Marcus's patent by 18 months. The day Marcus filed the patent for Quantum Shield, I made my move. First, I sent an anonymous tip to TechCrunch about exciting new developments at Nexus Technologies. Then I reached out to Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, a respected quantum computing researcher who'd been following developments in the field. I knew she'd been skeptical about the sudden emergence of QSafe from someone with no background in quantum computing. "I think you might be interested in this," I told her, sliding across a folder of documentation, especially pages 47 through 52. Her eyes widened as she read. This proves that every implementation of QSafe carries my signature, yes. But the patent was filed by someone who didn't understand what he was stealing. The next week was beautiful chaos. Dr. Chen published her findings just as TechCrunch ran their story about Quantum Shield. Marcus found himself in the spotlight, being asked technical questions he couldn't answer about code he didn't understand. But the real beauty came when Nexus's biggest competitor, Cipher Dynamics, announced they were testing Quantum Shield for their new security suite. Marcus couldn't resist the glory. He pushed for an accelerated implementation, overriding the concerns of our technical team. "This will revolutionize the industry," he announced at the company meeting, standing there in his expensive suit, basking in stolen brilliance. I sat in the back, counting down. 3 days later, Cipher Dynamics' entire network crashed hard. The backdoor I'd built into Quantum Shield had activated, corrupting data with surgical precision. Nothing permanently damaged. I'm not a monster, but enough to send their stock price tumbling and trigger a massive investigation. The forensic analysis was damning. Not only did it reveal the fatal flaw in Quantum Shield, but it also exposed something else: the author authentication signatures in QSafe, proving the original code was mine. Marcus's shadow identity fell apart under scrutiny. Investigators found the falsified documents, the fraudulent patent applications, the web of lies he'd constructed. But the most damning evidence was his own hubris. Emails where he'd bragged to friends about his foolproof plan to steal from his employee. I'll never forget the day security escorted him out. He stopped by my cubicle, his face a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew about the flaw." I looked up from my computer, where I was working on my latest project. Legitimately this time. "I gave you exactly what you wanted, Marcus. A brilliant idea you didn't understand, couldn't verify, and were too arrogant to question. You destroyed me." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I just wrote the code." He was led away, and I went back to my work. The patent office contacted me the following week about properly filing for QSafe under my real name. Nexus offered me Marcus's position, which I politely declined in favor of starting my own quantum security firm. 6 months later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Marcus. He'd pled guilty to intellectual property theft and fraud, avoiding jail time but ending his career in tech. The message was just 2 words: "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Some codes, once broken, can't be recompiled. But I did smile when I saw the news that Cipher Dynamics had hired me to fix their quantum security infrastructure. They were particularly interested in my new authentication protocols, the ones that made it impossible to steal credit for someone else's work. Funny how karma works in the digital age. Sometimes it comes in the form of poetic justice. Sometimes it comes as a logic bomb wrapped in stolen code. And sometimes, if you are very careful and very patient, it comes as both. As I signed the contract with Cipher Dynamics, my name, my real name, on every page, I thought about all those late nights coding, all those stolen ideas, all those times I'd bitten my tongue when Marcus took credit. Turns out, the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served encrypted, authenticated, and with a backdoor only you know about. Marcus taught me that. In a way, I guess I should thank him. But I won't.